Hello, everyone. We're going to get started. Thanks for all of you that came tonight. I appreciate us coming out, and I do want to say thank you to Supervisor Valentine for being here as well. It's nice to have somebody on the board here with me. Probably give some insight to what happened before I came here. But yeah, here we are for the wards. So, what is a ward system? I'm going to briefly read over this, but this is the fact sheet. I have this at the back, and along with the proposed map. So this colorful map right here with different colors on it. This is the proposed map from the Orange County Planning Department. That is over there on the back if anybody missed it. This is the fact sheet, obviously, and then this is the current election district map that we have in Chester right now. So that is, those are what those papers are for your reference throughout the time. I'm going to be referencing all of this. So with the fact sheet, just a brief rundown of what a ward system is at the very top here. It's optional. Just to get that straight, it's optional. That's why we had a referendum in the first place to get a ward system in place here. It's to divide a city or town for administrative or representative purposes, especially for the purposes of an election. Most of the cases for election purposes. That's what ours is for. Electoral district of a city council or town board. Ours is the town board, obviously. Created for the purpose of providing more direct representation. So the idea behind that is that in town Chester right now, every town board member is elected at large, meaning that they represent all of the town, and they are elected by all the town's members. With the ward system in place, the idea of it is to spread out the representation throughout the town. So instead of, for a very, I guess, extreme example, you could have this, with the system that we have right now, you could have 4 town board members all from one neighborhood. With the election system, with the ward system, you will be forced to have town board members elected from each part of the town. So we can have one, depending on where the lines are drawn, we'll have one town board member from Sugarloaf, one town board member from the north, like around Surrey Meadows, one town board member from the south, around where Monroe is, and then another in the center, like around Bull Mill or LaRue, depending on how the lines are drawn. So that is what the idea of ward system is, and that is what the idea of it, what was behind the referendum in 2018, as far as I have been told, and as far as I know from my studies on the subject here in Chester. So the history of it, that good way to lead into the history of it. In 2018, in August, the town board approved the resolution to put on the ballot that year proposition to institute a ward system in Chester, and then following that November, we had the referendum and the public voted for it. So it was approved by the public. It's a democratic vote on the ward system. Whether or not you fell on either side of that vote, it's going to be happening. I did do some research into what it takes to get that on the referendum. Again, if people want to abolish the ward system, I know I've seen a lot of talk on Facebook and through individual members of the community who are against it. They would like to see it overturned. It cannot be overturned or abolished until it is in place. Right now, it has been voted, but we haven't approved the map. So right now, the ward system is theoretical. Once we approve a map and we have that in place, then if members of the public would like to abolish it, would like to get it on the referendum again, and have the public vote on that again, they would have to either do a petition, which will take 5% of the votes of the total amount of people that voted in the last election for governor, or the town board can do what they did last time and motion to have another proposition on the next ballot for the election. But right now, you cannot, whoever is interested in that, or if anybody is interested in that, you cannot do that until we have an approved map, and that is in place, and we have an election on at least one election with a ward system in place. So back to 2018. In in 2020. Is that right? Right. So we were going to wait until the next census numbers in 2020 to get a ward system in place. If anybody remembers what 2020 was like, COVID happened. So very timely. I guess with the ward system, it delayed everything. And I know personally, because I worked with people on the Census Bureau to get the census done back in 2020. It took a long time, and the ward system was delayed because the census was delayed. Finally, the census was done, and the numbers came out, and I went back and researched when the numbers were publicly available to everyone who was interested in it. It was September 1st, 2021. The census numbers were out. So at that point, the town board had what it needed in terms of census information in order to get the ward system completed. So fast forwarding from 2021, only a few months later, I took office, and immediately, during my time on the campaign, I heard a lot from the people of Chester. A lot of people were interested in why the ward system wasn't in place yet. I didn't really know much about it myself. I had not been politically active in Chester up until that time. So when I got on the board, I was interested myself. I believe I brought it up at a board meeting once, or I asked the members of the board privately what was going on with it. And basically, we were waiting for the census numbers, one, but two, it was believed that we needed some sort of legal representation or help from experts in order to get the ward system drawn up and the proper language instituted in the law, which it is a way that you can do it. That is absolutely something that you can do. Unfortunately, there's not many experts on that type of law in the area, and it was, I guess, hard to track down somebody that could help with that, because at the time I had spoken to my colleague, Councilwoman Smith, who was in charge, I guess, of the project at that time, with getting the ward system developed, and she was having trouble finding somebody that could help with that whole legal side of it. A few months went by. I had kept on following up to see if there's anything I can do to help, and then eventually, around the summertime, July, Councilwoman Smith at a public meeting told me that I could take over for the project because she was having a little difficulty trying to move the ball forward with it. So at that time, and I had been contacting. We have down here in the lower left, the lower left bullet, Orange County Planning Department, or OCPD. I'm now figuring that can confuse some people. It can be interpreted as Orange County Police Department. That's not what that is. Orange County Planning Department. So we have the Orange County Planning Department. I had contacted them prior to that, and then started to really talk to them after that to see if we could just do it with them instead of some sort of legal firm in order to draw up the maps and give us the language in order to do it. And they said that they could. I spoke with Megan Tennerman. Big thank you to Megan for what she's done with the ward system so far. She's the one that drafted this proposed map, and we literally couldn't have done it without her to get us this far. Along with the Board of Elections, the Board of Elections did have to provide us with census data and other stuff that goes into something like this. So throughout the late summer and fall, I was talking with Megan on what we need to do to get it done. She came in on November 9th for a town board meeting to basically present to us what the process is and what she can do for us. As we approved the resolution that authorized the Board of Elections to basically redraw our election districts. The problem with this map, the current election districts that we have right now, is that they're not split up in a way that would allow us to easily draw a ward system. The ward system has 4 wards for 4 town board members. The town supervisor is not part of the ward system. He or she would be elected at large still. So for the 4 town board members, we needed 4 wards, but the old election districts they weren't giving us the best opportunity in order to draw it. It was still, if we wanted to keep election districts together, we didn't want to divide it up. So we needed to create new election districts to fit into wards. With that said, we passed a resolution to authorize her and the Board of Elections to do that.
Hold on, Brandon, can I ask you?
Yeah, please.
I'm sorry, just so what we're trying to do is 5 board members, 5 wards, is that it?
No. So we have a town supervisor.
Right.
He or she is always going to be elected at large. 4 board members,
Gotcha.
4 wards.
So there could then be possibility of the town supervisor being somebody's ward? Well, it would have to be, not could be.
Yeah, no, that's,
So there could be, okay.
Yeah, the town supervisor would be anybody's. It doesn't
Right,
matter
okay.
where the town
Thank you.
supervisor
Thank
comes from. Yeah, thank you. Josh?
Just a clarification, because I don't remember if you said it or not. The wards, they have to be like similar population, or?
Yes,
Okay.
so, I should have explained this earlier. So with the wards, the law is that the wards have to be divided up using 2 factors, population and geography. Those are the only 2 factors that go into making a ward. The population of each ward needs to be the same or similar, and the similar part is where it gets a little tricky. Each ward has to be within 10% of population numbers of each other. So they can be, the wards might have different numbers, but as long as they are close to that 10% mark, they're within that 10% mark, then they are considered equal and fair. Then,
Which would be 3,200.
yes, so yeah, I believe it was around 3,000.
Maybe 3,204, something
Yeah,
like that.
something like
Right,
that.
right.
Yeah, so it'd be within that margin of error, that number.
So that would be in flexible borders because if populations change in one ward or another?
I'm sorry.
How would the ward, the map change if population changes within those wards?
So the way the wards are drawn up is every 10 years with the new census. So there can be a huge population spike or a huge population decrease within those 10 years, but legally speaking, that is not factored into the ward. The wards don't get changed every single time there's a giant spike or a giant decrease. That's just not how it's done. It's done every 10 years. So when the census happens again, then we will reaccount for how the population looks. We'll redraw the wards. That's how that would go. Yeah.
I have 2 questions. First one, I just want to clarify. So if you have 4 wards, each ward you have one, like they would elect their council person, and if I'm in Sugarloaf and somebody over in the other part of town, I have no say in.
Right. So,
Right now I have a say in who the councilmen are, now I don't.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes. So
Now-
you have to say one council person.
This is what bothers me. Okay, so then now my second question is, what if I live in Sugarloaf, nobody wants to run in Sugarloaf, and you've got 4 people in another ward that want to run?
Good question.
So
That's the dilemma.
yeah, that is a dilemma. I personally don't know what would happen at that point. I would assume that if word got out that no one was running in one ward, somebody would surface and run for election there.
What if they don't? Then what?
It's part of it, I think, like the youngest person on the.
Yes.
Yeah, so what kind of pipeline do we have on these newly drawn boards? From what I understand, we actually have a vacancy on the ethics committee, thank you.
Yeah.
You know, so what kind of engagement do we have in these newly
Well, the
drawn?
vacancy on the ethics committee just happened last week, so that's not something that's been like a long-standing issue. We were able to, the last vacancy we had a few months ago, we were able to fill in quite easily. But that's a question that I really can't answer. I don't really know the pipeline of people that are engaged in order to run for office. I was engaged because I was always in politics. But that is a dilemma. That's something that's the public had to debate, and they decided to vote in a ward
I
system
don't
knowing.
think, quite honestly, I'm against it, and I don't think that the public understood what they were getting into. I don't, because my feeling is we are too small of a town to do this. It's great for a big city, but our town, no. And we sometimes have problems just finding someone to run, period. And now here we've got 4 wards, and we've got and I don't like the fact that there's going to be 3 other councilmen there that are going to be elected, and I have no say in that.
Right.
I don't like
understand.
that at all.
No, I get it. I understand where you're coming from. I'm here as a representative.
No, I understand that.
Yeah,
I just
yeah.
wanted to be clear,
It-
because
For
I don't think
people
people
who are
know.
against the ward system, you have the ability to get it on the ballot next time after we get it in place first. You have every right to go and petition to try to get it on the ballot again, or you have every right to advocate to the town board to motion it onto the ballot again.
But
Yeah.
when will this, if the maps are drawn up now, will this affect this coming election?
So that's, I'm getting to that at the
Okay.
end of it, but yeah, I will get to that.
I have a question.
Sure.
You're saying that it can't be changed until it's implemented,
Yes,
but it's not implemented. I mean,
right.
it's not even on the state's radar. It's not
Yeah.
even followed with the state. So as far as the state is
Doesn't have to
concerned,
do
it doesn't
anything with the
exist.
state, Larry.
What?
Has nothing to do with the state. I gotta speak up.
Department of State.
No, it doesn't. It's the elect,
All
it's,
local laws are followed with the Department of State.
right, but the local law was already filed to do this. It should have been,
It's
because the
not
law
on the,
passed.
it's not in the Department of State's database. So as far as the Department of State is concerned, it doesn't exist.
Right.
But that's because the town didn't do what they were supposed to do. That's plain and
Whatever
simple.
it is, I don't know if that's true or not. All I know is that as far as the Department of State is concerned, it does not exist.
Regardless of all that, it's a purely administrative thing. I'm sure we will, get it filed and in due time. But what you're saying is correct. The ward system right now is theoretical. It's not, it's been voted on, and we are supposed to have a ward system. We just don't have an approved map yet.
Yeah. But where's it documented that says we can't possibly put it back out for vote
Yes.
before doing this?
I spoke to the town lawyer, I spoke to the Board of Elections and the state's lawyer. They both agree that the ward system, they did send me a local law and a state law that explains all this. I can send this to you after the meeting if you'd like. But it did explain that the ward system cannot be abolished until it is first implemented. You can't abolish something that doesn't exist. If that makes sense.
It's already been voted to do.
Not only has it
Okay.
been implemented, but we've had actual voting.
Right.
Brandon, is it in place anywhere else?
How do you mean?
In Orange County?
Blooming
Sure.
Road.
Oh, yeah.
It's in the town of Walk Hill, it's in the city of Port Jervis, the city of Newburgh, and the city of Middletown,
And
and the town of Blooming Grove.
I have one question.
Sure.
So the county drafted this map. Is there a chance that they're going to be able to tweak this for us? Are they still on board with us?
Let me get to that. I will. Just let me, I only have like 3 more bullet points, then we can do this all night, I promise. After Megan came in and worked on the what's it called, the election districts and the ward map, I reached back out to her this coming year, so November of 2022 is when she started. This coming year, around January, I reached out to her to see what was going on. I reached out to the Board of Elections to see what the update was, and eventually we got down to a point at which the Board of Elections informed me that if the ward system, if the ward map is not accepted by a certain date in February, then we won't be able to have elections with those wards this year. So we would have to wait another year or 2 years. I haven't been able to find out exactly which option of that is. But if we weren't able to get the ward system in place by a certain date in February, which happened to be February 21st, which was 2 days ago, we won't be able to use the ward systems in this upcoming election. So I notified the town board. We thankfully were able to get a special meeting in place, which was held right here last week on Thursday, I believe. We had this meeting, and I personally was okay with this map just because of the deadline. The deadline was going to prevent us, if we didn't get it in by then, to have elections with the wards this year. And I felt that the population of Chester had waited far long enough in order to get the wards in place, since they voted on it back in 2018. I was willing to take this map at that time. My colleagues on the board, Supervisor Valentine, thought that the flaws, warranted us to wait and try to fix it, and that, knowing that it would cause another year or two, they were okay with that. That's completely up to them, and that's, that is their right to have that opinion. They are elected officials of this town board as well, so they are able to make that decision. So it was a 4-to-1 type deal, and we just, the town board didn't approve of the map in time. So with that, we all agreed that we would try to, I guess, have more public, what's it called, public input, thank you. Public input in this process. We voted on a public hearing on March 22nd, which is obviously this upcoming month, on everybody's opinion on what they would like to see the ward map look like. So please look out for that and show up to the meeting and, or comment from home to, on your opinion of what this map should look like, what should be changed. To your question, this is where it comes in. Yes, we can tweak this, as far as I know. The town board obviously didn't approve of it, so it has to be tweaked in order to get it approved.
Because the worst area, I think that the biggest concern area seems to be the Surrey Meadows.
Right, and that was one of the flaws I saw, and I think the whole town board agreed that, we'd like to see Surrey in one ward, and I completely agreed with the rest of the town board. I personally just wanted to get the ward system done this year, but I completely understand where the rest of the board is coming, especially on that point. Yes.
Why is there a differentiation here between Ward 1 and Ward 1, 2 and 1, 1? What's the differentiation? If you have it all in the map, 3, 1, 3, 2.
Right, so with this ward map, this is also an election district map. So each number on this, each of the first number on this map represents a ward in total. So 1, 1 and 1, 2 are 2 election districts within Ward 1, right? So there's 2 election districts per ward, 8 election districts total, 4 wards total, if that makes sense to everybody. So 1, 1 and 1, 2, those are 2 election districts for Ward 1. 2, 2 for, and 2, 2, 1 and 2, 2, that's Ward 2. 3, 1, 3, 2, 3.
And you're still based on population?
Right, yeah. So that's how that's kind of split up there.
Brandon, I'm not sure, why do they still need to have so many voting districts? Why can't you just have 4 voting districts, one per ward?
I'm not really sure, Sue.
Because the population of an election district cannot exceed 2,200 people.
Thank you, Sue.
You're welcome.
That's why we're BOE versus here.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so let's just assume that the maps get done and this happens, this election. What happens to the people who still have another year or 2 in their, on the council?
So there would be an election immediately for all 4 wards, as far as it's been explained to me. So anybody on the council would automatically basically be up for re-election. That's part of the reason why I wanted to get the ward system in place this year, because anybody who's going to be voted in this year, minus the supervisor's role, so the 2 council people who will now be running in this year's elections would basically be running for a year term, or at most a 2-year term. I still need to do some research on whether or not the next election, once we get the ward system in, is going to be held in 2024 or 2025. I still, unfortunately, did not get an answer to that at this time. Basically, the people that are going to be running for election this year will only be running for a very short term, and that's what I kind of wanted to avoid. But that's basically the story. That's where we are now. We weren't able to make the deadline, and now we are in a situation where we have time to tweak the map, and we are going to be working with the Orange County Board of Elections and the Planning Department in order to do that, and we're going to have a public hearing on March 22nd about it. And I'm very ready and willing to work with the rest of the board and hear from the public as to what the map should look like. But that is really the full story of where we're at now, and that's what's going to happen in the future once we have a ward system in place. Either we are going to have an election next year or 2025. I'm still researching on what needs to be, how that all plays out.
And just that tab, we were going to put a tab on the webpage, the town of Chester's
Yes.
page, the tab is already on the front page.
Yeah, thank you. The supervisor Valentine was just saying how We have all this information, yeah, these maps up on the website, and there's some other technical information as to the breakdown in numbers of each ward and each election district and all that. So all that information is on the website and its own tab they can find on the town board
So
website.
right now, in 2023, there's going to be an election for the town.
Mhm.
That's going to be for 2 council people and the supervisor
Right.
at large. But they're all going to be at large. So theoretically, you're not going to see this till 2024. There's no way it's going to happen in 2023. It's going to have to be 2024.
Right.
At least.
At least 2024.
Hopefully not 2025.
Yes.
I would think that the seats that would be coming up now, there would just be regular terms on them, so they'll probably be still 4-year terms, but they would be vacated once the boards go into place.
Correct.
Right, yes, so technically, the people that are running right now are running for 4-year terms, but in actuality, when the board system is hopefully adopted next year, their terms will be cut short.
But being that the supervisor is up this year, that's going to be a 4-year term, and that's not going to be effective.
Yes, the supervisor is not affected by the boards at all. That will be a full 4-year term no matter what.
So when you do vote for the board, you probably get, is it going to be 2 people for 2 years and 2 people for 4 years?
Yeah.
No.
How will it be implemented?
No. Actually, I did hear from the town attorney today about that. Each term should be 2 years.
Or we have to adopt a 4-year term.
Yes, or we can choose to adopt, but without us moving to do that, it starts out as 2-year terms.
So everyone's a 2-year term then?
Right, unless the town board votes to adopt a
So
4-year term.
you would set that up before the next vote anyway.
Yes, yes.
Once you approve this map, then you can approve, have 2 2-year terms and 2 4-year terms.
Right, if the town
If
board,
we adopt it.
yes, it depends on what the town board sees fit at that time.
Or rotating 4-year terms.
Right.
What are the plans between now and the public hearing in March?
What are the plan, more communication with the Board of Elections and the Orange County Planning Department. I did notify both of which about what had happened, so they can prepare to do more work on it. I know the town supervisor is also going to be reaching out to them.
We have the town engineer also reviewing for the districts.
Right.
The infrastructure districts.
Right. And obviously the town board is going to be looking hard at, and I hope, along with myself, going to be listening to constituents and residents throughout the next couple of weeks about what they want to see in the award system. But really, we're in a planning phase now, and we have to.
I kind of have a follow-up on
Yeah,
that.
sure. That was on
As far as public input goes, there was talk at the special meeting of committees. Has there been any further talk about that?
I think we kind of substituted the idea for a committee on it with a public hearing for now, but that does not mean we won't have committees on it, like a citizens committee on it. Right now, we are just focusing on the public hearing, but I'm personally in favor of a committee if one is deemed to be necessary by the rest of the board. But I'm pretty sure the rest of the board is very much in agreement that that is definitely something that we'd all be in
Okay,
favor of.
so you're taking public comment or public opinion, however you want to put it, through the town website. Okay, that link wasn't working today.
It wasn't?
No.
Okay.
So,
The link for the boards.
yeah.
We'll have to.
The link up there, probably
Well, I actually went to it yesterday and today it didn't. Yeah.
We'll have to talk. Yeah. We'll make sure that that link is up and running.
And if
so-
we could, advertise the fact that the town is seeking public comment on that.
Absolutely.
Use of whatever social media the town has.
Yeah, everybody here probably knows how much I post on the social media, so, I'll definitely be doing that. I'm sure the town will be sending out its own notification about that, to our email list and, everything else to have.
That's a question I have.
Hold on, Tom, we have somebody in the back.
I'm sorry, just to echo what the gentleman was saying, I was wondering if there's a way to have public input in the different proposed wards or closer to areas where people don't have access to internet or social media or not as
That's a good point. For those of you at home, she's asking how we can try to reach people that aren't on social media. I know the town has an email list that people could voluntarily sign up for, but that still probably doesn't cover people that you're talking about.
A lot of seniors don't use the internet.
Right.
Sorry for
Is that-
There is some that.
Yeah.
You can absolutely call or write in as well.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, but they have to know that they can't, that's the thing,
Yeah.
it's got to snow there.
I think the town can look into putting out an ad in the paper, to do that, to kind of, maybe we can, look into that.
I know you're looking at public comment for this, but ultimately, what was drafted is not gonna be altered that much. I mean, everybody can have any comment they want. The districts have to be put together in the way they are because of population and forming those, it's not like 4 districts, it's kind of like 8 districts, and all of those have to match. It's a complicated process to put this together. It's not simple.
Right, right.
So what we're seeing here is gonna get tweaked, but it's not gonna be a major change.
That's possible, yeah, absolutely. The second component, and I didn't unfortunately explain it earlier, the size of population is geography. Everything needs to be contiguous, meaning that they all need to be within the same area, they need to make sense geographically. So what Tom's saying is absolutely true. You know, you can't have basically what you see as the stereotypical gerrymandering pictures with like zigzag lines everywhere. They need to make sense geographically. So it's gonna be hard. It's gonna be tough. I mean, we're gonna, I think, have to do our best in figuring out how it could be changed and flipped. But I'm more than sure that Megan at the Orange County Planning Department took her time and did everything she could to make the map the best it could. And I'm sure there was a perfectly good reason, especially for the one that keeps on getting highlighted, Surrey Meadows, to be split up like that. I have to see how it can be done. I know that Megan, I did get confirmation from her today that she's willing to have a work session with the town board in order to try to figure this out on that.
Yeah.
But hold on before you guys go.
Do we know, or do you know, somebody knows, is Surrey Meadow currently split in 2 different election districts?
Yes, so it is. It's split into exactly 2, and either of the 2 election districts are in separate wards. So one part, Surrey Meadows, is in Ward 1, another part is in Ward 3. So they are split into 2.
I know that
Oh, you're talking about the current one? No, as of right now, the current whole of Surrey Meadows is all included in election district 5 on this map, at the very top of the map. So,
Yeah. Understanding that the ward map mirrors or tries to mirror the existing polling map. If Surrey is still within the same ward, I missed the meeting, the emergency meeting. It looks like if it's in this, is it in Ward 2? Am I looking at this correctly?
in the proposed map?
Yes.
So Surrey is at the very top, and it's in mostly, it's in mostly election districts 1-2 and election district 3-1.
I see now.
Meaning that they're in one part of it is in Ward 1, and one part of it is in Ward 3. So that's how that's split up there.
And other than the Surrey issue, was there any other major concerns?
So the other major concern by my colleagues on the board were special districts. Special districts are water, sewer, fire, all the special districts that have their own tax base and all that. School districts, yes. That was a major concern, but from the other boards, I personally don't see that as a concern. It's not something that you factor into decision making when it comes to drawing wards. That's not it. Again, it's only population and geography. My colleagues on the board thought that was something that should be considered when making wards.
Yeah, I actually reached out to Steve Amante, who was on the Blooming Grove board. They said special districts are handled exactly the same as they would be with any board, whether it be elected by wards or elected by, it doesn't matter in any aspect.
Exactly.
areas of the town of Chester right now. Kids go to 5 different school districts, so it would be impossible to do wards.
Independent.
4 districts.
4?
That's independent.
All right, population-wise, it's gonna be impossible to do wards by school
Exactly
district.
why that's not considered
Yeah,
when you.
why, it was mentioned that that was a concern.
Right,
It's a concern that, doesn't exist really in my mind.
right.
So today, the Department of State has no record of our local law 6 of 2018. It'd be interesting to find out why not. You know, the paperwork was filed, but it's the state didn't process it. It'd be interesting to know why.
Yeah, that was before my time on the board.
I understand. It's not casting blame, it just, I think it's something needs to be investigated with the Department of State. How come you haven't processed it? Now, maybe it could be according to the Department of State, the basis for award is not based on population, it's based on voters. According to legal memorandum LG01, the ward system of town government, so far as possible, the division shall be so made that the number of voters in each ward shall be approximately equal. Note that the voters may also decide on a proposition at the same election whether to increase the number of councilmen from 4 to 6, which is approved, would require going to 6 wards. So maybe seems to be a discrepancy based on what's defined in the Department of State and our local law.
So yes, I spoke to the Board of Elections lawyers at length about that, and I did say at the special meeting here that what you're reading right now, local election law, I think it's like 85 or something like that. That was made before the Supreme Court ruling on what board systems are, and it has been very much battled out in the legal world. It is population, it is not voters. It is population. Now I know that's on the state website. I know that's there. I have language from a lawyer from the Board of Elections that states that it's done population. I can send that to you too.
I'd like to see that because, I mean, it's some of this stuff is recent, so that I found on the website, it's from the state. So I think we just need clarification. You know, if this is wrong, it's based on population. That's fine.
Right.
But right now, I see discrepancy, and it needs to be resolved. And I think we need to ask the Department of State why haven't you processed, the request to file local law 6 of 2018.
I'm sure there's a perfectly reasonable explanation for that. I'll be following up on that to see what, again, that was before my time on the board. Josh?
So that was before your time. What was done with this whole thing before you kind of took over the project? Like, how much of it was done when you came in charge of it?
Well, when I got on board, like I said earlier, I brought up at a meeting, I had asked about it. Councilwoman Smith, I believe, was in charge of it. That was what was described to me, and she had been looking for a legal firm in order to help with the drawing and the language of it. But I was told that there was a lot of trouble in finding a firm. But is that correct?
That's correct.
Right. Yeah. So.
We were under the impression that we needed to.
Right. Right. And I guess.
I never informed the board.
I understand. So the board was under the impression that we needed a legal firm in order to help draw and write up the code and the language for it to be established. But I had reached out to the planning board when I took over. Sorry, not the planning board. The planning department of the Orange County when I took over, and they said that wasn't necessary. So in between that time, Councilwoman Smith would probably be better, somebody better to speak to about that.
Okay.
And other members of the board, but it was basically we were waiting to see if we could find, or not waiting, but the town board at that time was searching for a legal firm in order to help with it.
Earlier you said that,
Please speak up for the people at home.
earlier you said that the benefit of having a board system is also that each board represents one person, correct? So I have one question. Are there any
me and the way that I believe it was, what's called kind of battled out in the public sphere was that it would provide equal representation across the whole of the town. Instead of having members of the town board that were within one cluster, one even in extreme case neighborhood. I know that in the past that it was described that most of the town board members were from just Sugarloaf. So, we had most of the town board from Sugarloaf and the rest of the town and the village not even represented on the board. So that is really the main reason for having it, is to divide it that way so you have people from all walks of life, all parts of the town representing the board. The second question with the theory or the opinion that having boards might split up the town in terms of having the town board members fighting over resources or anything. I mean, that is theoretical. If that were the case, I believe we would see cities and towns not being able to function all over the place. I mean, we had multiple examples. What's it called? Described out here with Blooming Grove and Newburgh and Middletown and all that. All those are.
It's still a board vote, you still
Yes.
have that 3 votes.
Everything.
So they have to work together.
If that were the case, then none of those places would be working correctly. And we have on the board here, and I hope that we would have these members of the board that would still be able to work together. I mean, that's how it's really done. Having just a division of people around the town isn't going to prevent them from being able to work together in order to get things done on the board.
If I can, sure. I think to make the distinction, when someone is voted as a member at large, you're representing the whole town. When you're elected to a board, the only one thing they care about is their ward. Quite frankly, even though you vote as a board, everyone has to vote. It's true, but that person represents just that ward. That person's not representing the town. So that's the distinction between the two. There's pros and cons.
Well, I would still say that they represent the town as a whole. They're voted in by a part of the town, but they still are representatives of the town.
No, they're not technically. They're not. They're only representing the ward.
But what about like when Brandon
Yes,
mentioned?
No, but they vote.
It's a town.
But Larry, they vote. They get to vote.
I understand.
But they can take into consideration everything that happens in every ward. But if somebody in a ward, if some section, like a Sugarloaf section, has something, at least the Sugarloaf section knows where they can go to talk to somebody. The Sugarloaf section doesn't have to talk to 4 council members. The Sugarloaf section it's kind of like a legislative area but the legislator or the councilman would have to bring that back to the entire board. And it's kind of like it's not kind of like, it's having a representative from that distinct area to be represented and knowing what those individuals need. People from Troutbrook, Troutbrook doesn't even know that they live in Chester, right? So if there was a council person from Troutbrook, the council person from Troutbrook would know what the needs are, or what Lake Estates, or whatever it is.
Yeah, that's more or less the deal. I don't want to have too much back and forth on
I understand what
this.
you said, Sue. I don't agree with what you said. People who are elected, who elect them, that's who he's going to focus on, is those people. When you are elected at large, you're elected by the whole town. Okay? I'm just explaining the difference.
Right.
I'm not saying one's good or bad. I mean, there are pros and cons to both approaches. So I'm just trying to make the distinction between at large and ward.
That's right. I mean,
But could I just also say, sorry, I know you don't want the back and forth, but I've just got to say, but if there were 4 people elected that lived in Sugarloaf priorities would be the priority. There wouldn't be a priority for stuff happening in Surrey Meadows or stuff happening around the village area. That's what I'm distincting it as.
But you get to vote for the people that are living in Sugarloaf, if it's at large. Now you won't be able to.
It's actually backwards.
Yeah, but you never get the people.
That whole thing is moot because it's a law now.
Yes, that's
Town of Chester.
that's my point of not having a back and forth
It
on
can
this,
be
because
overturned.
this is already happening.
Yeah, it can be, but.
Yeah, again, if the public would like to see, if members of the public would like to see it overturned or abolished, however you want to put it, you have to wait until it's in place first, and then you can have another whole debate about it in the public sphere.
Just try to tie a bow on this whole thing about whether or not we need it. How close was the referendum that put this in place in the first place? Was it like a nail biter?
I was trying to line it up.
From what I remember, I believe it was like a 2-to-1, 3-to-1 vote on somewhere
You
in
can look
between
it up
that.
on the county website, and I'll
Yeah,
do it right now.
So it was like
It was a very large majority of the public was for it, as opposed to against it. It was a very clear, I wasn't politically active
It was
at
the
that time,
board's,
so.
it was the board's idea originally.
Yeah, one
It
of the
was
problems,
It was the board of Chester, it was the council of Chester.
I think one of the problems, I think we briefly touched on before.
It wasn't
When
just
it was-
Steve and Keon.
Since I can talk.
It was Alex.
One at a time, guys.
Preserve Chester had a meeting right here in this room. I was here for the meeting. Preserve Chester had Dr. Benjamin here. They sponsored the meeting, and they were here with petitions for people to sign. This room was full. I was here for the meeting, and it was obvious at that point in time that they would have enough signatures to put a referendum out. So I told them that I would put it up at the board because they would have enough signatures, and if that's what they would, if they had enough, then that's what we should do.
And Alex was behind it.
Alex is not behind it.
He
was
supported
against
it.
the wars.
What difference does any of this
Yes,
make?
guys,
It's a moot point.
Please.
Moot point.
If I may
everyone,
ask-
please, one at a time, and let's not let this get out of hand about what could or should of what's going, like, it is happening. So, again, a public debate can be had afterwards, and a petition can be signed, or the members of the board, if they get advocacy from the public enough, can put it up on the thing again, on the referendum. But
Brendan?
there's no reason to go back and forth at this now. Before you get on that,
I
she
just
had,
had a question.
she just had one first, I'm sorry.
Pardon me. Just want to clarify, I apologize if you already spoke on this. So to run for a specific ward, you must have your primary residence, or you must primary residence or just work in that ward?
No, it's where you live. You have to live in the ward that you run in, and you can only vote for people that are running in your ward. So, it goes both ways. Yes, the supervisor can live anywhere.
Yeah.
Yes. Chris?
Okay, so if there was to be a petition to overturn this, are you saying that once the maps are drawn, then it's
Once they're
official?
formed, once the wards are
Or-
formed and decided.
Or do we have to have an election with the wards
As
first?
far as I know, as long as they're formed, then you can have you can have another petition, or you can have the town board vote to put it on the referendum again. From what I've been told by multiple lawyers, you don't need to have an election first. I can double check that, but as far as I've been told right now, as long as they exist, then you can abolish it. You can't abolish something that doesn't exist. Right now, it's theoretical. If
Got
you
it,
voted
thank
for,
you.
it doesn't exist. Yeah.
Are you sure that there are absolutely no loopholes that will prevent you from abolishing it?
Yes, I'm absolutely 100% sure there are no loopholes.
I just want to ask you, referring back to when you started, you talked about the population, that each ward has to be within 10% of each ward. In 10 years, you said. So 10 years is a long time.
Yep.
So a population in any area could spike pretty high. So what happens then if, so say, for example, let's use Sugarloaf. So all of a sudden, people start moving to Sugarloaf and the population goes crazy. So then what happens to that ward? Does it get tweaked? Do you have representation? Do other people get represented in that area?
So it doesn't get tweaked until the next census.
So another 10 years.
Yeah.
Well, it would be 7 years.
Well, right now, at this time, we probably won't get a ward system done until 2024. So we will have another 6 years between then and 2030 in order to get, in order for a new ward system to be drawn. So after that, obviously, it would be every 10 years. But right now, because we're in the middle of two censuses, it's like 6 years.
So then there would be more people actually going to do that position for those wards, where the population's going.
How do you mean?
Like you mentioned before, there was one person for each ward, one person representing that area.
Yeah.
So now, say, for example, Sugarloaf now, this spikes, and they already have one person, but the population grows like another 10,000 people.
Still one person.
It's still just one person.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so just to lend on this man's topic, if I could. So you have 2-1, right, and 2-2.
Yeah.
That would be a ward, correct?
Yes. That'd be Ward 2.
2-2. So I can tell you right now that Ward 2-2 is going to have a population spike of approximately between 2,500 and 3,000 people within the next couple of years.
No, 2-1 is going to grow. 2-1.
No,
No, 2-2 is
2-1
going
is
to
in the
grow.
village, Larry.
2-2. But 2-2 and 2-1 are going to be one, that's ward, that's a ward.
Mhm.
Right,
2-2.
yes.
That's a ward. So 2-2 is going to grow by at least 2,500 people population-wise.
Mhm.
This is a fact, okay? That means that 2-2 population is going to be able to control everything in 2-1 and 2-2. So that means all of the southernmost part of Sugarloaf over there, Pine Hill Road,
What do you mean
Glendeer
control?
Road, where Larry lives, Black Meadow, Odyssey.
Well, that depends on how it's redrafted, you can't even
So-
say that now.
That one subdivision in 2-2 is also going to control every vote. It looks like to me that that's Whispering Hills in that too, in 2-1, isn't it?
All depends
No,
again how.
yeah,
how
2-1
that
is
map breaks
Whispering
up.
Hills, but
Okay,
that's,
bring it over then.
I'm just letting you know that 2-2 is
Right.
going to control Whispering Hills vote by 3-1.
it's gonna be
Control is a very charged word.
What's that?
We can't,
No, but right now, I'm just telling you.
I understand where you're coming from, but regardless of what, again, with population spikes or decreases, you cannot take that into consideration when drawing board. The only thing that you take into consideration are the census numbers. That is the law, right? That you cannot try to, because so if what the supervisor is saying, and if what I believe is I don't believe that it was stated at the last special meeting, we have to make sure we draw a ward to try to, guys, if we can just cut down with the side chatter just for a little bit. Sorry. If we try to draw a ward in anticipation of a population spike, that means that ward will be less, it will be decreased to anticipate for a population that will then be equal to the rest of it. You can't do that.
I'm not saying you
because
do that.
I understand, but that was discussed at the last special meeting. You can't do that because then it would be outside of that 10% error, that 10% percentage error. You have to have it within 10% of each ward. Each ward has to be similar in population. You cannot base it on anticipated population spikes or decreases. You can't. It has to be done with the census numbers. That is
Along with
it.
the two districts inside the ward,
I'm sorry?
along with the two districts inside the ward.
Right.
Also.
Yes.
It would be interesting, I think, since we're basically kind of being forced into this situation, to do a study. The other towns that you said had already started the ward system, to see how those towns and cities are either liking it, and how it's working for them. And that meeting with these other towns should be invited to an open forum for our town to see and ask questions and see how it's working for them.
So all that conversation should have happened before we had a vote on it. It's not being forced on anybody. This is a democratic vote that happened, so this is democracy in action. We had a vote on it. I did speak to a councilwoman in Newburgh who has a ward system in place. Everything works fine. They don't fight over resources. They don't fight over legislation. You know, the arguments and the fights come from opinion, not from, well, this is my ward and we have to make sure that this gets done for my ward, or I'm going to hold up the whole process. That doesn't happen there. I tried reaching out to Blooming Grove, and I know Tom did, and you said it earlier in the meeting that also doesn't happen in Blooming Grove. So those are two examples right there where the fears of what a ward system will result in are more or less disproven. So that's what I've seen. That's what my former colleague Tom has seen. So,
But I just think the public should see it.
well, I'm sure, you know, they had a very rigorous debate about all that before, and I'd be happy to invite others from, you know, ward systems to our public hearing in March. I can't promise that they'll come, but I can tell you what I've learned from them speaking. I know I've already spoken to one councilwoman from Newburgh about her experience on the city council and the ward system they have there, and I plan to follow up with Louis Grove about theirs, and I know there are others that were listed before that I can definitely call and see how it's been going too. And I'd be happy to invite all of them, but again, that is a debate that has no bearing on this. This is happening. So that cannot have any bearing on it.
I said that even given a spike in the population of Ward 2, there would still only be one ward. There are 3 other wards. Who will be voting?
10 years.
Whatever
For
the
6 years.
whatever the Ward 2 is going to do, right? However they vote. There's still going to be only one board. There were 3 other boards on the town board that will vote however they want to vote, whether it's with 2 or against 2. So it's still one board vote.
Well, I'm just saying that it's equal representation, so it's gonna.
Well, there will be no representation
But it would be
until
changed.
the
Guys,
next.
back and forth, please, guys, please. I know, I'm sorry, but legal representation, it's still legal because it's still based on the last census numbers. Regardless of what the actual numbers are,
Equal.
right, it will still be equal because it's still one board, and the ward is based on the census numbers.
All right, just as a point of information, the vote was 3,477 to 1,094, and that was Prop 1 at the general election 2018. Another point is, every way that we're represented in this country is done every 10 years. Every assemblyman, state senator, congressman in the United States, the districts change according to population every 10 years.
Right.
So that's not something that would be peculiar to Chester when it happens.
Right.
It's done all over the country,
On the Constitution.
Yes.
from the Constitution. Thank you, Bonnie.
Correct.
Any other questions? Sure.
Just to piggyback off of what the woman said,
A little louder, David.
Please, yes.
if there is a population spike in District 2, and like she said, that outsized influence would be relegated to that ward. But if that population grew quite large, under an at-large system, they could actually seat the entire ward instead of it being limited to a one ward. Is that correct?
Right, that's, yeah. That is a side effect of what would happen with the ward system, is that no population spike in just one part of the town can affect the whole board at one time. It would be.
It limits an outsized influence.
Right.
To
The influence would only be contained to one board.
And the supervisor.
Well, yes, the supervisor race is still at large, so that wouldn't be affected.
Thank you. The special election, future special election at taxpayer expense, that's the one after the ward system is fully approved and is illegal for our folks.
Right, so that line is still, I am debating whether or not I'm not debating, I'm researching. I have been told by Board of Elections officials, now I don't know if this is 100% true, but I have been told by them that if we get a ward system in place, it may result in a special election. Obviously, it would be an added expense on the taxpayers in Chester. Now, that might not be true, but that is what I was told by the Board of Elections. So I'm continuing to research that to see if it's going to be a special election, if we're going to have to wait for the 2024 general election, or we have to wait for the next local election, which would be 2025. But I have been told by multiple officials that it could result in a special election, which wouldn't be at the same time as one of the regular yearly elections.
One special election.
For all boards, yes. Yes, that's what I've been told. Now, again, researching it further, because I don't want to, tell the public something that's wrong. I just say I'm very happy with, I call this a community town hall, and I'm happy that a lot of members of the community came out and are very passionate about it. I know it's a lot of back and forth, but I think it's good. So, two things. One, the public won't be voting on this. Town board will. Plenty of people do know what the ward system is because 3,400 and something people voted for it, and I would assume that they at least knew a little bit of what they were voting for at the time, including the 1,000, however, who voted against it. So that's a pretty good sizable chunk of the population that did vote in an election on the ward system. And three, I really agree. I'm going to do everything I can, and there is only so much that town board members can do, and the town hall in general to put the word out. But I will do everything I can to advertise that public hearing so people know where to go and advertise the town board website, the tab that we have.
Why don't we have a graphic done and put it on the billboard?
Yeah, that's a
Get
good
rid of
idea.
that, right?
But the disappointing part is, you have 12,000 people in the Manchester, and 4,000 people voted.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there are only 12,000 voters.
No, they're not, but there's still
There are
12,000.
8,000 registered
So
voters.
it was a very good turnout for, an off-year referendum at the time. It was around 50%.
And there was only 544 people that didn't vote at all for it.
There you go.
What is the petition? How did it get started?
So a petition to get something on the referendum, there's a bunch of legal language that goes into it from New York State. I can definitely explain that to anybody afterwards at a different time. I have to send you a document, but it basically, you have to get 5% of the total amount of people in Chester that voted in the last governor's race. And once you hit that mark, then the board is compelled to have something on the referendum.
Who initiates it? How does that come?
Any person, anybody that lives in the municipality of Chester.
Anybody can take that up?
Yeah. Good. So the March 22nd meeting is a town board meeting, and at the beginning of that town board meeting, it's a regular meeting, we're going to have a public hearing on the ward system. So anybody that has opinions about how the map should look for the upcoming ward system that we have to develop can come in during that meeting, or they can comment from home if they're watching it on YouTube or the WebEx link or Facebook about how they feel the ward system should look like. Whatever their opinion is, or they can come in person.
Do the board elections advise by board or actually by district what the population was in each one? What the total was? Did they provide?
Yeah, so they provided the census data to the county planning department in order to know exactly how, they have their own internal system. It's a bunch of math stuff.
They all those numbers are on the town website.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so the numbers that, how the county planning department split up the proposed wards, and I think what the numbers were for the last ones, are all up on the website, I believe.
There's a description of the thing in writing, and it's also the numbers.
Right, it's very technical, it's very tedious to read, so just be prepared.
It's complicated.
Yes, it's complicated. They have their own internal system, how they do all of it, and with the census data, they know how to split it up, even down to the street. Are there any lingering questions before we're concerned?
Yeah, public hearing, Bob, you might be able to answer this more. Is a mailing a possibility? Any EDM to the town?
I know that the email list can be utilized, and emailing, like a physical mailing, I know that it's been done for certain things in the past, but in specialized areas.
Authorize a mailing, it's motion. There's an expense to that. Yeah, it's gonna have to cost something. Yeah.
Do we know,
There's, about 5,000 parcels in town, so we have to, strip out the commercial stuff and,
I can
Probably
definitely,
get a mail house to do it on a bulk permit.
we could find out.
Little
Yeah.
cost.
I think we can look into the cost of it and see, but I like that idea. I mean, it will definitely fix the issue about people who don't use the
I
internet.
know the special districts do, and I understand it's a much smaller population, but,
Right. I know that's been done for
If that's
smaller
something-
populations.
well, it's done with, every year when the tax levy goes out for sewer district 5.
Yeah.
I get the card, so, but again, that's only, 50 parcels, not 500.
But we get it from the
Yeah.
water district
Is there enough time? Sure,
Sure.
we're aiming for March?
Absolutely.
Anything else? Going once? No? Okay. Thank you for everybody